Welcome to Key Tech. Please describe this channel if you are interested in today's video. It can be said that China's semiconductors have been developing rapidly in recent years, which has aroused the concerns of the United States. Although many countries in the world have stronger semiconductor capabilities than China, only China and the United States are laying out the entire semiconductor industry chain in the world. It is precisely because of the layout of the entire semiconductor industry chain that the United States has the confidence to repeatedly modify chip rules and restrict chip exports. It is precisely for this reason that other countries have to follow the United States and be restricted by American chip rules. Now that China is rising in the entire semiconductor industry chain, it will naturally cause the United States to worry. Just last October, that is, 7 months ago, the United States issued a series of new regulations on the export control of semiconductor equipment, and also would Japan and the Netherlands to sign a tripartite agreement, intending to lock China in terms of semiconductor equipment in the field of 14 nanometers. Just recently, Japan and the Netherlands have also issued relevant semiconductor equipment export control rules. Although they have not made it clear, they are actually targeting China. Among them, the Netherlands restricted the export of 2000i and other models of DUV lithography machines, while the Japanese side was even more ruthless, doing everything absolutely, directly restricting the export of 6 types of 23 types of semiconductor equipment, and almost restricting the possibility of all chip manufacturing processes. The type of semiconductor equipment used. Export controls in Japan and the Netherlands have not officially begun to be implemented, but the consequences of export controls in the United States have recently begun to appear. American semiconductor equipment manufacturers have suffered serious losses. Some foreign media directly stated, the consequences have appeared. American semiconductor equipment manufacturers have suffered serious losses. It has been 7 months since the implementation of the new U.S. regulations restricting semiconductor equipment of 14 nanometers and below. The impact on China's semiconductor industry is not obvious, but the revenue and interests of U.S. semiconductor manufacturers have been damaged. According to the Nikkei News, in the first quarter of 2023, among the top 9 semiconductor equipment manufacturers in the world, 8 manufacturers' revenues decreased, or their growth rate slowed down year-on-year. The revenue of Japanese equipment manufacturers decreased year-on-year. Although the performance of the other 2 companies, Adwan and Screen Holdings, increased, the growth rate reached the lowest level within 2 years. Not only that, according to the second quarter forecasts announced by these semiconductor equipment manufacturers, 7 of the 9 semiconductor equipment manufacturers expect revenue to decrease, of which the U.S. Applied Materials forecast year-on-year decrease reached 12%, and several other U.S. and Japanese semiconductor equipment manufacturers have also experienced performance deterioration to varying degrees. It is not difficult to see from these data that after the United States implemented the new regulations on semiconductor equipment, the most severely damaged are these American and Japanese semiconductor equipment companies. It can be said that the tripartite agreement between the United States, Japan and the Netherlands is completely affected by the interests of domestic companies. The huge pressure of loss is in action. There are 3 main reasons for this decline in revenue. The first point is that global chip demand has plummeted, and major chip manufacturers have cut orders one after another. From the middle of 2022, the demand for global chips began to decline. By the end of 2022 and the beginning of 2023, chip foundry giants such as TSMC, Samsung, and Intel began to cut orders. As the upstream industry of the chip industry, the slump in demand for semiconductor equipment will come later. But if the demand for chips does not improve, then the slump in demand for semiconductor equipment is only a matter of time. The second point is that the United States has repeatedly revised the restriction rules, and manufacturers cannot ship. The United States revised the export control of semiconductor equipment last year, mainly targeting the Chinese market, and the Chinese market is the world's largest semiconductor market. No company can give up the Chinese market. After losing the Chinese market, these American semiconductor manufacturers naturally suffered serious losses. The third point is the localization of China's semiconductor equipment. As ASML said, if China cannot purchase the semiconductor equipment it needs, China will develop it independently. This is the current situation. After the United States restricted the export of semiconductor equipment, the reverse effect of the technology blockade gradually began to appear. The domestic substitution rate of China's semiconductor equipment is constantly increasing, and domestic substitution has almost been completely realized in fields such as etching. The future of semiconductor companies in the United States and Japan is not optimistic. On the one hand, the sharp drop in global chip demand is due to the rapid expansion of the production capacity of major chip manufacturers, and on the other hand, it is also related to the sharp drop in consumer demand for smartphones under the global economic environment. Judging from the current situation, it is unlikely that chip demand will pick up in the short term. Semiconductor equipment will continue to experience a sharp drop in demand. As Japan and the Netherlands announce the export control of semiconductor equipment, it means that the tripartite agreement has officially surfaced. The tripartite agreement does not meet international standards. Last year, China proposed to conduct related investigations, but because the United States firmly refused to admit it, Japan and the Netherlands did not take action. Now that Japan and the Netherlands have announced one after another, China has enough reasons to investigate. In this way, for semiconductor manufacturers in the United States and Japan, it is undoubtedly bad news that cannot be worse, and the replacement rate of Chinese manufacturers continues to increase. The future of semiconductor companies in the United States and Japan is not optimistic, and corporate interests may be further damaged.